Hello, esteemed gentlemen. God doesn't send warriors to comfort the world. He sends them to confuse it first. Ever wondered why some men walk through chaos like they were born in it, but never belong to it? Why they feel everything, but trust no one? Why their silence says more than your therapist after 12 sessions and a discount? You're not crazy. You're just brushing up against a force God designed for disruption, not decoration. Here's a little-known fact. Studies in neuroscience show that empaths actually have hyper-responsive mirror neurons in their brains. That means they literally feel your emotional state like it's downloaded into their nervous system. Now imagine combining that with the strategic detachment of a lone wolf who doesn't even need to be liked. Congratulations, you've just met the Sigma Male Empath, a divine paradox. A man who reads energy like scripture but still ghosts you like a deleted prophecy. God didn't create him to fit your expectations. He created him to uproot emotional fakery, bypass social politics, and function as a divine firewall in a spiritually corrupted system. And trust me, this isn't your average nice guy with superpowers. No, this is the man who'll feel your pain and still walk away, because healing you was never the same as saving you. Welcome to the world of the Sigma Male Empath, where mystery meets mandate and emotional intelligence is a weapon forged in spiritual fire. Number 1. God made him to be a mirror. Narcissists can't look into. He was created to be feared by narcissists without ever raising his voice, making threats, or needing evidence. His presence alone unsettles them, not because he's loud, but because he's clear. Most people get emotionally tangled in manipulation and don't even know it's happening. Not him. He walks into a room and picks up on the power dynamics immediately. He doesn't need to wait for someone to show their true colors. He already sees the shade they're trying to hide under. Narcissists thrive on confusion, smoke and mirrors, and emotional chaos. They rely on others second-guessing themselves, needing validation, or craving approval. But the Sigma Male Empath doesn't play that game. He doesn't seek permission to think, feel, or detach. He notices when compliments come with strings, when vulnerability is weaponized, and when someone's kindness is nothing more than a setup. And worse, for the manipulator, he doesn't react. He simply observes, calm, cold, certain. That kind of stillness, it's terrifying to those who manipulate to feel powerful. Because the Sigma Empath doesn't just see through lies. He sees why the lie was told. He catches the insecurity behind the arrogance, the desperation behind the ego, the emptiness hiding under the charm. And when someone like that realizes he can see them that clearly, the panic begins. They may not say it, but they feel it. Exposed, stripped, seen in a way that no one else has ever made them feel. And the most dangerous part? He won't even call them out. He doesn't need the confrontation. His withdrawal is louder than an argument. The moment he senses toxicity, he detaches, not to punish, but because his soul repels what isn't true. Narcissists expect people to chase, to prove, to explain themselves. But the Sigma Empath gives them none of that. Just silence, just absence, just the unease of standing in front of someone who's not afraid of their games, because he's already mastered his own. And to a narcissist, that's not just intimidating, that's annihilating. Because they can't control what they can't confuse, and he is clarity wrapped in calm. Number 2. He was born to love without chains and leave without scars. He doesn't love halfway. When he gives fully, present, attentive, real. But what sets him apart is that he doesn't turn that love into a leash. He doesn't confuse connection with ownership. You'll feel the depth of his heart, but you'll never be able to trap it. That's because his love is pure, not performative. He's not loving you for approval, status, or ego. He's loving you because it's in his nature. But once that love is betrayed, once the energy turns dishonest, he doesn't explode. He evaporates. There's no dramatic exit, no long emotional argument, just absence. The kind that speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. Not because he's cold, but because his soul simply can't coexist with emotional corruption. His intuition won't let him ignore what's off. You won't get a second round of fake peace or performative forgiveness. He sees too clearly for that. The moment your energy starts pulling him into toxicity, he cuts the cord and walks. Quietly, completely. It's not revenge, It's not punishment. It's alignment. He knows staying would be a betrayal of himself. And unlike most people, he doesn't feel guilty for choosing himself. He understands that love without self-respect isn't love, it's submission. And he refuses to become emotionally enslaved to anyone's dysfunction. That's why people never forget him. Not because he stayed, but because he left with no bitterness, just silence and self-possession. And when you realize how rare that is, how rare he is, it's too late. You won't be haunted by his anger. You'll be haunted by the fact that someone could love you that deeply and still walk away that completely. He doesn't stay where truth doesn't live. He doesn't keep watering a connection that starts feeding off his soul. Because God didn't give him depth just to drown in someone else's emotional poison. He loves like a storm. But if you cross the line, he disappears like mist, and you'll never find that energy twice. Number 3, he's a divine antidote to performative kindness. He doesn't smile to keep things comfortable. He doesn't compliment to be liked. He doesn't bend his truth to protect your ego. His kindness isn't curated, it's raw, unfiltered, real. While the world hands out niceness like a business card, hoping to get something in return, status, favor, approval, he's operating on a whole different frequency. He shows up with sincerity, not strategy. And that alone makes people nervous. We live in a culture obsessed with optics. People don't just want to be good, they want to look good. So kindness has become a performance. Virtue is measured in likes, posts, and approval ratings. But the Sigma Male Empath doesn't play that game. He doesn't announce his empathy. He doesn't campaign for moral high ground. He acts when no one's watching and walks away before anyone notices. He'll say the hard thing gently, and the gentle thing when it's needed, without filters, without expecting a gold star for being human. That kind of purity, kindness with no strings attached, is deeply unsettling in a world addicted to manipulation, masked as morality. Because he can't be guilt-tripped. He won't be flattered into silence. He'll see right through the fake kindness others use as social currency. And when he doesn't return it, when he refuses to play nice just to keep peace, that's when people call him rude or difficult, not because he's unkind, but because he won't lie to make others feel comfortable. He's not here to win the popularity contest. He's here to walk in integrity. His empathy isn't a costume, it's who he is. And that threatens people who only know how to fake connection, not feel it. You won't find him posting his good deeds. You won't see him fishing for applause. You'll just feel it when he's around. Real care, no performance. And when he's gone, you'll realize how rare that kind of presence actually was. He's the quiet resistance to a noisy, hollow world. The living proof that authenticity doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be. Number 4. He was built to hear what pride keeps buried. He doesn't need you to explain what's wrong. He already knows. Before the words leave your mouth, he's picked up on what your body tried to hide. The forced laugh, the delayed answer, the slight tension in your voice. It all speaks louder to him than any confession ever could. That's because he doesn't just hear what you say. He hears what your spirit leaks. And most of the time, people don't even realize they're leaking. While others listen to reply, he listens to reveal. He can sense the pain you've buried under politeness, the heartbreak hiding behind your strength, the bitterness tangled in your silence. And he won't call you out, make you uncomfortable, or pry for the sake of curiosity. He'll just be still long enough for the truth to come to the surface naturally. Because when he's around, your soul senses it's safe to be real. Even if your ego's not ready for that kind of exposure. This gift doesn't make him popular, it makes him unavoidable. People either open up to him completely or avoid him like a mirror they're not ready to face, because deep down, they know he sees them, fully. And not the version they show to the world, the real one. The scared, guarded, cracked version they've tried to hide for years. He doesn't weaponize what he sees. He doesn't gossip, manipulate, or exploit. That's not how he's wired. God tuned his spirit to a frequency beyond language, so while others listen to the noise, he hears the signal, and the signal never lies. That's why people feel oddly emotional around him, even when he says very little. His presence touches things inside them that words have never been able to reach. You can't fake it around him. He'll nod politely, but he already knows the truth. Not because he's judgmental, but because he's spiritually fluent. He was built to translate pain into understanding and silence into meaning. So when you meet him, don't waste time pretending. Say nothing, he'll still hear everything. Number 5. He was built as God's silent filter for human depravity. He walks into spaces heavy with tension, manipulation, and unspoken darkness, and without a word, the atmosphere starts to shift. Not because he speaks up, not because he takes charge, but because his spirit starts absorbing what others are too blind or too numb to feel. God didn't design him to confront depravity with noise. He designed him to filter it silently, deeply, and visibly. The Sigma Male Empath has a gift that feels like a burden most days. He doesn't get to walk into a room and just exist. He walks in and feels everything: who's pretending, who's breaking, who's dominating, who's hiding. The emotions that float under the surface for others hit him like a wave. But instead of drowning in it, he processes it, transforms it, purifies it. He takes the emotional residue no one else notices and clears it out with presence alone, and no one ever thanks him, because no one realizes it was him who changed the temperature of the room. The narcissist suddenly goes quiet. The tension between people relaxes. The fake smiles falter under the weight of his calm. But by the time they notice the atmosphere feels different, he's already gone, back into silence, back into solitude, back into the shadows where he operates best. This isn't some poetic talent. It's a spiritual calling. God made him this way because someone had to be strong enough to carry the emotional toxins others keep recycling, and not become poisoned in the process. That's why he's not loud. That's why he doesn't stay long. That's why he always seems a little distant, because he's constantly detoxing the invisible poison others release like air. He doesn't ask for recognition, credit, or applause. He's not interested in being the hero. But the truth is, he often is. Not by saving people with grand gestures, but by being the unseen force that keeps rooms from imploding, relationships from snapping, and energy from becoming unbearable. He is God's silent filter, placed exactly where darkness gathers but never feels brave enough to stay. Number 6. He was engineered to feel what leaders fear. While the world praises the loudest voice in the room, he's tuned into the quietest cries. Kings, alphas, and self-proclaimed leaders often get drunk on control, obsessed with hierarchy, obsessed with being followed. But the Sigma Male Empath? He was built to see through all of it. He's not distracted by authority or titles. He's not hypnotized by confidence or status. He feels what's happening under all that. And often it's not strength, it's suffering in disguise. Most leaders overlook the emotional cost of their rule. They want obedience, not honesty. They surround themselves with yes-men, people-pleasers, and silence. But the Sigma Empath notices the subtle shift in a person's energy when they're complying out of fear. He sees the twitch in the eye, the tightness in the voice, the buried resentment behind the agreement. Where others see loyalty, he senses quiet desperation, and he carries that awareness like a sacred responsibility. That's what makes him dangerous to systems of control, because he can't be fooled by charisma. He can't be seduced by influence. He's not impressed by the illusion of power. He's alert to what it's built on. And most of the time, it's built on suppression, ego, and the emotional silence of those too afraid to speak. He doesn't expose it with rebellion. He exposes it with presence. Just by being there, he becomes a disruption. His awareness becomes a mirror that leaders don't want to look into, because unlike followers, he's not there to submit. He's there to sense. And that makes him immune to manipulation and intolerable to those who rule through fear. God engineered him this way for a reason, not to overthrow power, but to hold it accountable, not to lead with force, but to walk with truth. He doesn't seek the throne, he watches it, and he watches everyone around it, because where others are hypnotized by the crown, he's listening to the people forced to kneel, and that's why the world may never fully embrace him. But it will always need him. Number 7. He's a walking lie detector, crafted by divinity, not design. He doesn't need to dig through your past or interrogate your intentions. One look, one conversation, one pause in your tone, and he already knows. You can say all the right words, wear all the right expressions, and put on your most convincing act, but he hears what you're not saying. That's because the Sigma Male Empath wasn't just gifted with emotional intelligence. He was built by God to detect deception in a world that's mastered the art of pretending. You can polish your image, curate your personality, and hide behind social masks. But he reads between the syllables. He catches the micro-expression that flashes for half a second. He notices the energy shift when you talk about someone you care about. He knows when a compliment is a setup, when kindness has a hook, when sorrow is staged. And the most unnerving part? He never has to call it out. He just knows, and you feel it. It's why manipulators hate him. It's why liars get defensive around him without even knowing why. His calm presence becomes a mirror they didn't ask for, because deep down, they can tell. He's already seen the part they're trying to hide. This gift didn't come from books, trauma, or training. It came from something higher. God equipped him with a spiritual radar, because in a time where deception is dressed as charm, empathy had to evolve into discernment. And that's what he carries. He doesn't just understand emotion, he dissects it. He doesn't just pick up on pain, he locates the source behind the performance. He's not cynical, he's not paranoid. He's just too spiritually attuned to be fooled by surface-level sweetness. He won't embarrass you, he won't expose you. But don't mistake his silence for ignorance. His stillness means judgment has already been passed, not in hate, but in truth. He doesn't scan your words, he scans your energy, and if it's off, no matter how beautiful your mask is, he'll sense the rot underneath it. Because God didn't make him for flattery, he made him for clarity, and clarity doesn't lie. Number 8. He was born a cursebreaker in bloodlines addicted to bondage. He didn't come into his family to fit in, he came to interrupt. From the moment he could think for himself, he noticed the patterns. Fake peace at the dinner table, silence when truth was needed most, cycles of emotional manipulation passed off as love, pride masking pain, shame passed down like inheritance. Where others shrugged and called it just how we are, something inside him couldn't stay silent. Because he wasn't born to continue the curse, he was born to break it. The Sigma Male Empath is often the outsider in his own bloodline, not because he's rebellious, but because he refuses to bow to the unspoken rules that everyone else obeys. He sees the generational wounds no one wants to talk about, the unhealed trauma that disguises itself as tradition, the toxic dynamics dressed up as culture, and instead of absorbing it, he challenges it. With truth, with distance, and sometimes with complete separation. His role is painful. He's the one accused of being too sensitive, too distant, or too different. But that's exactly what makes him the key, because he feels what everyone else is numb to. The tension, the lies, the emptiness in the fake smiles. And unlike others, he doesn't need approval to validate his path. He was wired by God to walk alone, if necessary, to cleanse a family line that normalized dysfunction. He doesn't try to save everyone. That's not his mission. His presence alone begins the unraveling. He's the first to set boundaries that feel like betrayal to the emotionally entitled. The first to say no to generational guilt. The first to protect his peace, even if it means being misunderstood by the very people he was sent to disrupt. God sends him not to comfort the system, but to expose it, to confront it, to create something new. Through his choices, his silence, and his refusal to carry inherited pain, he starts a chain reaction, one that liberates the next generation from what the last refused to face. He's not the black sheep, he's the blueprint, not the problem. The solution with a pulse. Number 9. He doesn't speak to impress, he speaks to set spirits on fire. He doesn't waste words. Small talk drains him, shallow compliments irritate him. Empty conversations feel like slow spiritual death. The Sigma Male Empath was not built to speak just to be heard. He was crafted by God to speak only when it matters. And when he does, his words don't just land, they cut, free, or rebuild. There's no in-between. He can sit in a room full of people and say nothing and somehow still speak the loudest. That's because his silence carries more weight than most people's loudest declarations. He doesn't jump into every debate. He doesn't explain himself to the shallow or argue with fools. Why? Because his energy knows the cost of misused breath, and when you're wired to feel everything, you learn quickly. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every moment deserves your voice. But when he does speak, it's like something ancient and sacred is being unlocked. He doesn't talk to entertain egos or flatter crowds. He talks to strip illusions, to expose hidden truths, to free minds trapped in emotional fog. His words make some uncomfortable because they remove the masks people have gotten used to wearing. He speaks into people, not at them. And that's what makes his presence both magnetic and unnerving. Some think he's too intense. Others think he's too quiet. But that's because most people are addicted to noise, desperate for validation, or afraid of silence that forces them to hear their own emptiness. He's not interested in that game. If his words don't liberate, he'd rather say nothing at all. His silence isn't passive, it's sacred. It's where he listens, reads energy, and guards his spirit, because he knows. Real wisdom doesn't scream. It observes, waits, and speaks with precision. And when it does speak, illusions crumble and people either run or awaken. He was never meant to be popular. He was meant to be provocative, not with volume, but with truth. And in a world drowning in empty words, his silence is a sermon and his voice a sword. Number 10. He was created to be the emotionally dangerous man. Women can't manipulate. He's not dangerous because he's cold or cruel. He's dangerous because he cares and still won't let you control him. You can cry, guilt trip, withdraw affection, give mixed signals, or play the long manipulation game, and he'll watch you unravel your own strategy. The Sigma Male Empath is the one man emotional manipulators dread because he feels everything. But he's owned by nothing. He'll notice the emotional bait you're throwing, but won't bite. He'll sense the performance behind your tears and still refuse to dance. He knows when affection is real and when it's a transaction disguised as love. You can try to play the victim, but he's already decoded the script before you finish your first act. He doesn't react the way manipulators expect, and that makes him deeply unsettling to anyone trying to pull strings. What makes him emotionally dangerous isn't aggression, it's clarity. He sees the intention behind the attention. He doesn't fall for the performance, even when it looks like love. And that's a nightmare for anyone used to bending emotions to their will. He doesn't rage, beg, or chase. He mirrors. You bring drama, he hands it back. You bring depth, he'll meet you there. But try to twist his feelings into submission, and you'll find out quickly. You can't guilt a man who has made peace with solitude. Women who rely on manipulation often find themselves confused in his presence, not because he's mean, but because he's not available for emotional warfare disguised as connection. He listens but doesn't absorb toxicity. He cares but won't carry your projections. He can love you deeply and walk away silently if you cross the line into emotional dishonesty. His empathy is real, raw, and fully alive. But it's also protected by a level of discernment that makes him immune to control. That's what makes him emotionally untouchable, not because he lacks heart, but because his heart isn't for sale, for games, or for rent. He doesn't react, he reflects. And in a world full of actors, he's the one man holding the mirror. Number 11. He was sculpted to decode patterns the world pretends don't exist. He doesn't just observe the world, he dissects it. Where most people see events, he sees patterns. Where they see coincidences, he sees systems. And where they hear noise, he hears signals the average mind filters out. God wired the Sigma Male Empath with a mind that doesn't rest until it understands the unseen architecture of reality. That's what makes him both powerful and dangerous, because he notices what the world tries to deny. He'll spot patterns in people's behavior long before they admit them. He'll sense the hidden agenda behind a kind gesture, or the emotional wound hiding inside a joke. He doesn't need a long history with someone to know what they're about. He can feel their patterns in a few moments. He hears what they don't say. He reads what's between the words. And it's not something he tries to do. It's just how he's built. That same ability doesn't stop with people. He sees it in systems, in culture, in power dynamics. He picks up on the cycles, how the media manipulates, how groups move in predictable rhythms, how society rewards conformity while punishing awareness. He notices how certain ideas get repeated until they become gospel, even when they're hollow. He sees how manipulation hides behind marketing, how corruption hides behind charisma, how weakness hides behind performance. And when he speaks on what he sees, people react in extremes. Some awaken because deep down they felt the same things but couldn't put words to them. Others get angry, defensive, because they're still attached to the illusions he's dismantling, and some try to silence him because they benefit from the very patterns he exposes. But he doesn't speak to be liked. He speaks to bring clarity. His insight isn't welcome in places where denial is currency. That's why he's often labeled intense, paranoid, or too much. Not because he's wrong, but because he's right too early. God didn't give him this mind to blend in. He gave it to him to disrupt, to decode what others are too comfortable to see. And that's why when he speaks, it either liberates or offends. Number 12. He was designed to be the one man who can't be colonized emotionally. He's the kind of man manipulators can't stand, because he doesn't flinch. You can guilt-trip him, weaponize silence, cry on cue, or withdraw affection in hopes of controlling him. But none of it works. Not because he doesn't feel, it's because he feels everything and is still governed by nothing. Emotional colonization only works on people who haven't claimed sovereignty over their own soul. The Sigma Male Empath already has. You can't control someone who has no fear of being alone. You can't bend a man who doesn't need approval to breathe. This is what makes him untouchable, not arrogance, not coldness, but complete inner freedom. You can't emotionally trap him in cycles of drama because he doesn't feed on chaos. He sees through the game before it starts. And the moment you think you have him, you'll realize he was just observing you the whole time. His strength isn't just in his boundaries, it's in his detachment from ego-based validation. He doesn't need you to like him to feel worthy. He doesn't need to be praised to stay kind. And that alone shatters the usual control tactics most people rely on in relationships. He has empathy without enslavement, compassion without being a doormat. That's a combination few understand, and fewer can handle. People who are used to dominating emotionally often mistake his silence for submission. But his silence is calculation, discernment, observation. He's reading the emotional terrain while you're throwing emotional darts. And when he finally speaks or acts, it's surgical. No drama, no explanation, just decisions. He's not moved by crocodile tears or manipulation dressed up as love. He's not afraid to walk away from what looks good but feels toxic. That's because he answers to something higher. He's not here to play emotional hostage games. He's here to protect what's sacred within him. You can only colonize what isn't spiritually grounded. He's already surrendered to truth, to purpose, to God. So no, he can't be conquered. Not emotionally, not ever. Not. The Sigma Male Empath is not society's blueprint of a man. He doesn't fit your boxes. He doesn't play your games. He doesn't chase your applause, because he wasn't made in your image. He was forged in fire by a God who needed someone to walk where others break. He carries pain he never caused. He sees darkness no one talks about. He feels what the world hides, and loves without leashes. He's the quiet storm in a room full of noise. The mirror you didn't ask for but can't look away from. The soul that doesn't belong to anyone, but serves something far greater than himself. You'll call him intense, strange, intimidating. But deep down you'll know you've never stood in front of someone more real. Because when God created the Sigma Male Empath, he didn't build a man for the world to celebrate. He built one the world would never forget. If this spoke to something deep inside you, if you felt seen, understood, or even a little exposed, then you're exactly who this message was meant for. Don't just watch. Be part of something real. Hit that subscribe button if you're tired of surface-level content and ready for truth that cuts and heals. Like this video if it lit something in your soul. Comment below. Your insight might be the mirror someone else needs. And share this with someone who's felt different their whole life. Maybe they were never broken, just built for something bigger. Welcome to the tribe. You're not alone anymore.